guys. So the question is, are you martyring? Don't want to talk about this. So what is martyring, or a martyr complex? You probably are familiar with it, but I'm just going to briefly go over it. It's when you take on a ton, or a ton is put on you for some reason. Sometimes it's necessary things, sometimes it includes a few not so necessary things, and you get little to no help with those things, and then you get resentful about it. You're exhausted, you're burnt out by it, and rightfully so, because it's a lot of work. Some thoughts or things you might say, I do everything, I'm so busy I can't even think, I don't have time to even feed myself or go to the bathroom. So things of that nature. And this is all pointing toward a martyr complex, being a martyr. This becomes a little bit of passive-aggressive revenge when you make these statements, or when you act in such a way that it's very evident that you are put upon, because you think they'll see how I'm suffering and they'll feel badly about that. They'll feel guilty, and maybe you'll even have some of the thought of, my puppy's here, some of the thought there that they'll decide to help me, then they'll decide to pitch in. But that's a little bit ironic, and I'll get to that in a minute. This is going to happen often for people who were the golden child in their family, or the caretaker, or if there's a tendency to be an overachiever, this can happen. Doesn't have to, but I think that seems to be the tendency. So this martyring is, I'm just going to call it out for what it is. It's rooted in anger. What you might feel, might have access to feeling, is frustration and exhaustion, and maybe you might be aware of your resentment, but that boils down to anger. These are just my thoughts, but I've been there, so giving my expert opinion on it, and I have friends and family who've fallen into this pattern, so I recognize it. But my theory is what the anger is over is abandonment. There's an abandonment wound there. And it could be you had a parent who was abusive. Obviously, they're not parenting you in a correct way, so therefore that's a type of abandonment. You could have an alcoholic parent who could not be there for you because they were incapacitated by that. You could have had a very depressed parent who was just out of it on the couch in their own state of depression. You could just have parents who were not emotionally available. And if you were upset about something, or if you got hurt and cried, no one was comforting you. Or not comforting you in an effective or appropriate way. That's an emotional abandonment. That's still an abandonment wound. It could be something like you were a NICU baby and you didn't have those first few hours with your mother like you were meant to. You didn't have that bonding, and maybe you had a great life beyond that, but that could have left you with a bit of an abandonment wound. There could be a lot of things that did it, but I think a lot of us deal with abandonment wounds. We don't need to be judgy about why they happened, but they're there. So I think that's where martyring comes into play. We have anger about being abandoned, and I'm going to show you this very sketchy little chart that I made to kind of explain it. So at the center of it, we have the abandonment wound, and then we have anger. Anger about being abandoned. And then what comes after that is feeling unworthy of help and support. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. We're angry about being abandoned, and when you're angry, you like to find someone to blame. And even on a more base level, your brain is trying to figure out why it's happening. No child wants to think that their parents are incompetent, are unavailable, are not parenting them in the appropriate way. That feels really scary and really dangerous. These are the big people in our lives who are supposed to be taking care of us. So instead of placing anger and blame there where it may rightly belong, we start internalizing that, and we decide that we are not worthy of help and support. So then that's where that feeling comes in. That's where that part of the cycle comes in. So the next, I need a chalkboard, right? Next comes, we refuse help. We refuse it because we feel that we are unworthy of it. It doesn't feel safe to accept the help. It doesn't feel right to accept the help. There's probably some guilt feelings involved in accepting help. I know that's something that I dealt with a lot. When people would offer help, even though I knew I really, really needed it, and it was like, no, thanks, no, I just couldn't. You might be refusing help in a really nice way. You might be refusing help in a maybe not so nice way. Nobody else can do this, right? But nonetheless, you're refusing help. So that's the next part. And then finally, which is the thing that's going to bring it full circle, in refusing to help and refusing to even support yourself, because we are feeling unworthy of our own help and support, so our self-care is in the toilet. In refusing help, you abandon yourself, and you reopen the abandonment wound, and from abandoning yourself, you become angry all over again about being abandoned. So it's a big vicious circle. It is a snake eating its tail, a very angry snake eating its tail, a very ineffective snake eating its tail. But that is what happens. And again, no judgment. I don't know why I feel like I need to say that 100 times, but I've been there, I've done this. I can still fall into this. So it's okay. But now we're having awareness about it, and we're moving away from this. So at the center of it, I'll put the chart up one more time. You can make one of these, by the way, if that's helpful for you. You can use this to chart any of your emotions, big emotions. At the center of it is the abandonment wound. So if we want to get rid of all of this, we want to work on this, the abandonment wound. I'm going to go into a little bit of how you can do that. This is certainly not an all-inclusive thing, and I'm not saying that this is going to heal it all up, but I'm saying you can get the ball rolling, and I'll also link some resources that I think are helpful, if I can get the links to work. So we'll do a little bit of emotional literacy on this. I like to ask questions. I like to ask myself questions. I feel like that's really helpful. You can do this if that feels helpful for you. Ask yourself, what are you angry or resentful about? You kind of got that started in saying that there's an abandonment wound. So if you just want to start off with, I'm angry about being abandoned, you can get more specific than that. If you can think of a specific moment or series of moments or ways in which you were abandoned, you can be very specific about that. When do you remember first feeling it? I think that's a good thing to ask, because you're tracking back how long this has gone on. This pattern might have been entrenched in you for a very, very long time. Think about the age that you were. How old were you? How old do you feel when that anger is coming up, that resentment is coming up about being on your own, being alone, having to do it on your own? How old do you feel? So for me, I'd say I feel maybe about 3. Can't really detail out why exactly right now, but 3. So you can pause and think about the age And then you can even backtrack a little bit, branch out into more detail about why you're feeling it at that age, what was going on, what was happening. So then the question that's going to start raising up some resistance, probably, who wasn't there for you? That might be really easy to answer. It's usually going to be a caregiver, or both caregivers, or more than two caregivers even. This is where the anger is probably going to come up. Who wasn't there for you? Feel those feelings. Let them come out. Let yourself be angry. Let yourself be angry at that person or those people. I know that maybe feels really wrong, but it's not. It's not misdirected anger. It's not saying that they're bad people. We're not going there right now. We're not assessing them. We're just saying that there was a point at which you needed someone to be there for you in a specific way, and they were not. Whether it was because they were not able to, or they chose not to be, that doesn't really matter. They just weren't. It's okay to be angry about that. You were let down. You were let down. You're allowed to be angry about that. So validate those feelings. Let yourself truly feel them, validate them. I'm a big fan of writing them down if you want to. But I feel like it's important to get them out. Don't just let them rattle around in your brain. If you have to take notes in your phone, do that. If you want to make a video recording, do that. Sometimes that's really effective. Or just write them with pen and paper. Draw, even if that's your thing. But feel those feelings and validate those feelings. I have every right to feel angry. It's going to be uncomfortable, but we're going somewhere with this. I know it's not the best feeling to sit with anger. I'm not saying stay in an angry state. We're going somewhere with this. So you're feeling the anger, you're feeling the hurt, you're feeling the pain, you're validating that. I have every right to feel this way. It's natural to feel this way. Anyone would feel this way in this situation. When you feel like you've done what you needed to do, as far as validating goes, and maybe you need to do some tapping on this too, that's okay. But now, when you're ready, you're going to ask yourself, was I there for me? The answer is going to ultimately be yes, because you were there. You were there. You were physically there. There with yourself. You're there. But ask yourself anyway, and let yourself answer, and whatever comes up, if the no comes up, dig into that. Why is that coming up? Was I there for me? I was. I was there in a very literal sense. I was there for me. Did I survive? We're not getting into, was I okay? Am I thriving? No. Did I survive? Am I still alive? If you're watching this video, the answer is yes. You did survive. You took care of yourself enough to still be alive at this point in your life. You sustained your life. That's why you survived. You've always had the ability to be there for yourself. That's a huge thing to recognize when you're trying to deal with an abandonment wound, because you haven't been alone. You have had your back all this time. That's a really big thing. I know right now that might not feel like enough. Take a deep breath. You are enough. You are enough. Sit with that. We're not going to get too into that right now. But you've always had the ability to be there for yourself. So now the work comes in. Stop abandoning yourself through martyrdom. You don't need to relive the abandonment over and over in order to validate it. A lot of times that's what you're doing. You're trying to validate your anger by reliving it over and over and over, because then it gets bigger and then you feel more valid about it. It's not getting you anywhere. Feel and move forward. You can. You can let this go. If you need a little motivation, this is a little bit of tough love. But let's say you have kids. If you want to make your children feel unworthy, if you want to make them feel like little burdens, and if you want to set them up for a life of codependency, keep acting like a martyr. I guarantee you that is a surefire way to make that happen. Some other motivation. This is a narcissistic tendency. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That's some narc fleas you picked up there. Because the thought is, the unconscious thought potentially, working hard, I'm working harder, I'm working on my own, that makes me better than all those lazy people who are not helping me. I'm better, I'm stronger. This is a very false sense of self-worth. And that's something to let go of. You are worthy just by being a human, just by virtue of being a human being. You're worthy and you're good enough. And you don't need to make yourself feel better than anyone else. You don't need to make yourself look better by overdoing it, by performing, by overburdening yourself, by not delegating in an appropriate way. That's not necessary. So you don't want to be like a narcissist. You don't want to be like anyone who's messed with you or abused you, of course. That's all unintentional, and it's a very easy thing to pick up. It's a very easy pattern to learn, especially if you have a parent who modeled it for you, which I think most of us probably did. So let that motivate you to heal. I think what's important to know is that the antidote is never going to be others stepping up to help you. I know that that's probably going to bring up a little bit of anger. Honestly, the thought brings up anger for me too, even now, a bit, because you feel like people haven't been there for you. And so you feel like the answer is going to be people being there for you. But here's the thing, if you're stuck in this loop, you're not actually going to allow or accept the help, because you're stuck in the loop. You're not going to feel worthy of it. You're not going to allow it. Or you will be seeking it from people who are completely incapable of giving it because you don't feel worthy. So unconsciously, you will have people set up in your support system who are not reliable. I touched a little bit about this in my gaslighting the dog video. You'll have people in your life who will offer help and support and who are completely incapable or unwilling to do it. They'll say that they will and they won't. And it's like you have a safety net full of holes. And that's what you think you're worthy of when you're stuck in this, when you've been abandoned. So the antidote is never going to be other people being there for you. Once you work on this, other people will be there for you. You will find that you feel worthy of it, and those people start showing up in your life, people who are genuinely capable of offering you help and support. And you'll also find that you're there for yourself. And that leads to what the true antidote is. The true antidote is self-care, which I know is a really trendy thing right now, self-care, but it doesn't have to be spa days and sushi and cucumbers on your eyes or an expensive steak dinner or 3 glasses of wine. Those can all be lovely things, maybe not so much the 3 glasses of wine, depending on where you're at, but that's not what self-care is about. It's very basic and simple. It is taking care of yourself. So remembering to feed yourself on a regular basis, not getting to the point where you're hangry and ready to rip someone's head off, or you're feeling dizzy and like you're going to pass out because you've just been doing and caretaking. Remembering to feed yourself, that's self-care. Remembering to hydrate, that's self-care. And if you can do this with nutritious food and water, pure water, all the better. But I'm not going to be a food dictator right now in this video. It's these small, simple things. It's not holding it until you're ready to burst to go to the bathroom because you're busy caretaking for everybody else. It's maybe giving yourself 5 minutes in the bathroom instead of 2 to just decompress a little bit. Pausing again, hold on. And when you do these things, acknowledge it. Acknowledge, I'm taking care of myself by feeding myself. I'm taking care of myself by drinking this water, by drinking this wonderful warm cup of tea. I'm taking care of myself by going to the bathroom when I have to go. I'm taking care of myself by taking a few extra minutes alone in the bathroom. And by the way, no one's going to fault you for taking a bathroom break. So you could be at work. If they are faulting you for that, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. You could be at home with your kids or with the cats who are bugging you with the dog, and nobody's going to fault you for taking a bathroom break. Go in there and lock the door and it'll be okay. Just take that time to decompress. You can do some self-affirmations in there. You could do hand mnemonics. You could tap. You could just speak kindly to yourself. But be intentional about it and acknowledge the fact that you're taking care of yourself. And part 2, because I accidentally hit stop instead of pause. Thank yourself for self-care. Because when we fall into this martyr loop, this pattern, we often feel like we are doing thankless jobs. We feel unappreciated or underappreciated. So instead of constantly waiting for someone else to give you a pat on the back, give it to yourself. Thank yourself. Thank you. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for giving me this water to drink. Thank you for giving me this delicious and nutritious food to eat. Thank you for taking me to the bathroom when I had to go, when I first felt like I had to go. Thank you. That's a relief. That's lovely. Thank you for giving me 5 minutes of quiet time on my own in the bathroom. That really helped me unwind, helped me feel more calm, helped me feel more regulated. Thank you for taking some time to write down emotions. That helped stop them rattling around in my head. That helped me get back to center, get back to calm, helped me solve a few things. So be intentional about self-care. Thank yourself for it and make a habit of it. Do it on a regular basis. Schedule things in if you have to. And it doesn't have to be perfect right now. It can be you're eating food on the go. I'm not going to be a food Nazi, I swear, but if you can make it food that's good for you, all the better. You can do that with food on the go, you absolutely can, but if it's a bag of nuts or seeds or carrot sticks, it's on the go, but it's still food, it's still getting into your body, it's still taking care of yourself. Obviously you can have water on the go, that's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be perfect, but being conscious about it and being intentional, that's going to make all the difference in the world. I will add a book that was super enlightening for me as I was working on this stuff. I read it a couple years ago. It's called The Dance of Anger. I have to look up who the author is. I should have done that before I started the video, but I'm not perfect. I'll try to find it and I'll put it in the description of the video. It's from like the 80s, so it's maybe sounds a little bit out of date. It's geared toward women. Women tend to be the ones who fall into these patterns, but that's absolutely not across the board. There are plenty of men who fall into this martyr role, plenty. They just might not be as verbal about it. It might all be kind of like these thoughts coming up in their heads. Don't feel like you're wrong if you're a man who's having this stuff come up. That you're probably a golden child or an overachiever. You were the caretaker of the family. So that's normal. It's not emasculine. And I would still read this book if you're a man. It's basically about what the point of anger is, what anger is telling you. It's an alarm system in your head. It's not something to try to rid yourself of. There's nothing inherently wrong with anger. It's what you do with the anger. So this is an alarm system going off in your head. It's letting you know that change needs to happen. Pay attention to why you're getting angry. That's what this whole thing was about. That is the whole way, that's the basis of how we're able to figure out that this comes from abandonment. Anger about abandonment. That's how we're able to map it. So don't try to get rid of the anger, and you'll try to say let it go, and you're just, I talked about this in, I think it was the dog video too, you're just shoving it down. You're just shoving it down, shoving it down, shoving it down. That's not getting rid of it, because you're not addressing what needs to change. So acknowledge the anger, figure out what it's telling you, and then make the appropriate changes. But I would check out that book if this is something that you're really struggling with. It does not go into abandonment issues. It's been a little while since I read it. I don't think it went in too deeply into what the root causes were. A little bit, but probably not so deeply. This is something to explore for sure. Something that's helped me a lot is tapping specifically on abandonment, people not being there for you, feeling alone. I will see if I can link those videos. I really like to use Brad Yates. He has, I don't even know how many videos on YouTube. He's amazing. He has a video for pretty much any topic. So if you're feeling it, you can probably type that feeling into YouTube and add Brad Yates, and you're likely to find a video on it or something close to it. So I'll try to link at least one or maybe a few videos that would be helpful specifically for dealing with the abandonment wound. What's also, I think, extremely valuable, obviously, is the emotional literacy, and working on healing the superego. Richard Grannon has a course on that. I'm actually working through it now. It's really awesome. It's on his website, Spartan Life Coach. It's well worth it. It's not a huge investment, and it's really solid. Really solid stuff. If you're dealing with an abandonment issue, I think that could be really valuable to you. You don't have to. You might not be ready for it. That's okay. There's other ways that you can deal with it right now, but these are just a few things that I found helpful. So, now that I'm on part 2 of this video, and it's been quite a long video, I hope this was helpful to you, to someone. Please, if you did find it helpful, give a like and share it with someone you think it might be helpful with. Subscribe if you want to see what other stuff my brain comes up with that I want to fling out onto YouTube. I'd love to hear in the comments if this is something that you're finding challenging, if you found yourself falling into this martyr cycle. Martyr cycle. Sounds like motorcycle. The martyr cycle. Are you riding the martyr cycle? Tell me in the comments if you're riding on the martyr cycle. Or how you've figured out ways to get out of it. How are you using self-care to challenge this martyring pattern in your life? What are some resources that you found helpful? I love hearing about that stuff. I love learning about that stuff, and it can be really helpful to other people. So please share in the comments below your experiences with that. And I will talk to you all soon. I still am going to be putting up a video on tips for recovery. I just have not done that yet because the muse has been speaking to me. The muses. I'm very amused right now. No, but I get these inspiration for the videos. I find myself furiously writing on the bathroom floor, not on the bathroom floor, on a piece of paper while I sit on the bathroom floor. And then it's like I'm feeling passionate about it right now, so I want to put the video out now. But I haven't forgotten about that, the 2 simple tips for recovery from abuse. I will be putting that out. I will be making that very soon. I really will. And also a video in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm hoping to do a little bit of a group discussion with that. I just have to figure out scheduling. I'm working on an outline right now. If you have anything specific that you would like addressed in the domestic violence video, feel free to put that in the comments as well. I'd love to hear what you want to hear about it. Topics I know I'm going to cover are warning signs from early on in the relationship and feelings that kept you stuck. Those are definitely two things I'm going to cover. If you think of anything else, questions, things that you'd like me to include that you think might be helpful for someone else, write it down. I have every intention of making this. Sometimes my intentions don't necessarily produce fruit, but I really want to. I think it's important. And I'm hoping to get some male input as well from men who have experienced domestic abuse or domestic violence. I honestly feel like they're one and the same, but it's called Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so that's what we call it. But anyway, yes, please comment with anything. I love to connect. And I will speak to you soon. Thank you.